Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, my top 10 reads of the year so far. So we're getting towards the end of half one of 2023, and I thought I'd do a quick video and give you my top 10 books of the year so far. It took me a while to come up with that top 10 though. I got like a list of all my 5-star reads, which was there were about 20 of them. So I've had a really good reading year, I think. And I'd managed over a number of revisions to get that down to 10, but it was a struggle. And I think on other days, I may have come up with a slightly different top 10. I haven't included any manga in this list. So obviously I have started reading manga recently, but a lot of those stories are, kind of ongoing stories. And I want to see how they play out before I really make an assessment of, my overall impression of the books. But what I would say is, Blood on the Tracks is definitely my favourite manga series that I'm reading at the moment, and potentially that could have made it into the top 10 if I was further through it. So anyway, I've got 10 things for you to talk about. I will go from 10 up to 1. 6 of them are Kindle books, 4 of them I've got physically here. It did occur to me that people could pause the video at this point and look at the shelves behind me and see if they could figure out what those 4 books were, because clearly they're all missing from the shelves because I've taken them down. But I doubt anyone will be insane enough to do that. So anyway, let me go through them, and I will start at number 10 and see as we go if you can figure out what the number 1 book is going to be. So at number 10, I did think many times about whether I should include this book on the list or not, because it's not a book I want to encourage anyone to read. It's a book I have very mixed feelings about. It's an extremely horrible book. I still feel scarred by it. But because it's a book I just haven't been able to forget, it felt appropriate to include it in this top 10 list. That book is Hog by Samuel R. Delany. A terrible, horrific, horrible book, but also an unforgettable book, and therefore one I'm including in this list. What I would say as well, I forgot to say at the start, so I think I've done video reviews for all 10 of these books. So I will leave links to those reviews in the description for the video, so you can watch those reviews and get my fuller thoughts on the books. So yes, Hog by Samuel R. Delany is at number 10. At number 9, Bomber by Len Deighton. So a fantastic book about the Second World War, and in particular about one single bombing raid, so an RAF bomber crew bombing Germany, and the impact of that bombing raid on both people on the Allied side, but also on Germans on the ground. A really intricately put together book, full of fascinating detail, but full of kind of humanity as well. I really did think it was pretty excellent. At number 8, something very different, but I couldn't not put this book on the list because I had such a great time with it. That's How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. So a very over-the-top haunted house book, full of humour. Got a fantastic central kind of monster character in it. Just really, really entertaining. Very, very funny, very gripping, brilliantly paced, some really good characters. I just had such a fantastic time with that book. At number 7, I've slightly cheated and mashed 2 books together. So those books are A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Shy, both by Becky Chambers. So the 2 books, as it is so far, I'm not sure if she's going to write more books in this series, but the 2 books so far in the Monk and Robot series. So just a lovely, lovely sci-fi series about these 2 characters, one of whom is a tea monk who travels around and makes tea for people, and one of whom is a robot. And robots in this world have been like distanced from the rest of society and have kind of formed their own civilization out in nature. So it's about these 2 characters meeting and forming a friendship. Just a really lovely kind of hopeful science fiction series. Really, really, really enjoyed it. Ahead of that, the first book I've got physically was Double Indemnity by James M. Cain, a fantastically gripping and twisty noir novel about a a wife and an insurance salesman kind of teaming up to murder the woman's husband. A classic story, really kind of really gripping, really grueling, really dark. I just thought it was fantastic and, you know, very justifiably remembered as a classic. Ahead of that, another classic, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So a short story about a woman who is effectively imprisoned by her husband as she suffers from effectively postnatal depression after the birth of her child. Very much draws on Charlotte Perkins Gilman's own experiences of postpartum psychosis, and just a really one of those books where you don't know if what you're seeing is really happening or not, and incredibly effective as a result. Only a short story, but absolutely brilliant. I really did think it was pretty fantastic. Ahead of that, a book by my favourite author, Evan Hunter, also known as Ed McBain. So this is his debut novel as Evan Hunter anyway. I think he had written some things under pseudonyms before this. This is The Blackboard Jungle. So not a perfect book by any means. There is one aspect of this book which is terribly handled in my opinion. But overall the book is brilliant. So a book about a kind of hopeful young teacher going to this rough school in New York and trying to do the best for the kids. So it's that kind of classic story. You know, you've seen it again and again, but The Blackboard Jungle is one of the first, you know, really popular examples of it, and it's so engagingly written. Evan Hunter was such a great writer of popular fiction. There's some fantastic characters in this. There's real tension, there's humour, there's romance. It's got everything. Just a brilliant popular novel. Ahead of that, something that couldn't be more different. It's a play. So that is The Pillowman by Martin McDonagh, which I read just recently. One of the most disturbing things I've ever read. Just fantastically effective. So about basically an interrogation between these two secret policemen and a writer that they brought in and are discussing various crimes with. But incredibly chilling. The backstory to this book is just so unbelievably horrific. It will stay with you, as I'm sure, as it has stayed with me. So yeah, an absolutely fantastic play. The first play I reviewed on the channel. I don't know if I'll review more plays. I'm not particularly minded to, but if they're as good as this one, maybe I should be. Okay, at number 2 then, This Sweet Sickness by Patricia Highsmith. So given that I'm reading a Patricia Highsmith book every month this year, and I think she's really great, it's probably no surprise there was a Patricia Highsmith book on this list. This, I think, is the best one I've read so far, albeit Deep Water was a very close second. So just a fantastic suspense novel about this guy who's obsessed with this woman and about him trying to win her over. But you go on a real voyage in this book with that central character, and your understanding of him changes as the book progresses in a way that I thought was absolutely brilliant. A really, really fantastic suspense novel, but a really interesting examination of kind of, you know, broken psyches as well. I really thought it was a brilliant, brilliant book. Okay, that brings us to number 1. If you've been watching for the channel for a while, you might be able to guess what this is, but it's not necessarily a book you would expect me to rave about on a channel like this. Anyway, the book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which I just thought was amazing. I've read a few classics over the last year or so and really not enjoyed them at all. You know, I've DNF'd Dickens, I've DNF'd Tolstoy, but Jane Eyre was just a wonderful, wonderful book. Jane is such a brilliant central character, and there's just so much going on in this book. You know, as I said in my review, there's horror, there's mystery, there's romance, there's humour, but at the centre of it all, Jane as this wonderful, determined character who you can't help but root for. I thought this was just a wonderful, wonderful book, and deservedly beloved by so many people. So I hope you found that interesting. Let me know if you guessed any of the books in my top 10. Let me know what your favourite book of the year so far is. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.